What's going on, everybody? I had to talk about this one a little bit. I know it's kind of old news at this point. Everybody knows, everyone's already talked about it, but it kind of all happened right before and then during and then in the immediate aftermath of that final preseason game. I wanted to devote my channel to that mostly while it was going on. But I do want to talk about this for a minute here because this is big. This is big news, and I wasn't expecting it at all. Was not expecting it one bit. So, Julio Rodriguez, a 21-year-old who had, what was it, another 5 or 6 years of club control left, has been extended. And you don't see this that often. It might become more common now, but you don't typically see an MLB team say, you know what, we're not worried about those super cheap club control years. We're just going to give you what you're worth or close to what you're worth now. But the Mariners realize they have somebody that every other team in the league is going to want very badly at some point, and they've decided to make sure that doesn't happen. So Julio Rodriguez is going to be a Mariner for quite some time. Minimum of, I think it's 12 years. I don't think it can possibly be less than that, but it could go as far as the contract is complicated. I'm not going to dissect every little detail of it. I'm going to sum up a few things. But the point is, Julio's going to be here for a while, and he's going to be making an amount of money that is appropriate for his level of play. And as of right now, it's 210 million. But if he plays well and options get picked up, it could go up to just shy of $500 million. So Julio Rodriguez, he's making the big money now, and this team has locked themselves to him for the foreseeable future. So the extension spans 14 years technically, but there are some details in the structure of it that are a little more complicated. It's 120 million base for the first 8 years, but then it grows significantly, 320 million if we exercise our option. But if the team declines their option and Julio exercises his player option, it goes to 210 million. So either way, you're looking at a lot of money here. And what this basically does is after that 8 year period, both sides have some ability to call an audible if things are not going well. And that's kind of interesting. You have the opportunity for this team. Let's say Julio ends up falling off. And I think that's very unlikely. He's clearly a five tool dream, right? Like he hits for contact, hits for power. He's a great fielder. He's a defensive asset. Great on the base paths. Seems like he's got a good arm too. So this is a five tooler, and he's already really young. The odds of him just suddenly forgetting how to play baseball seem very low, but it's not impossible. This allows us to have an out potentially. And maybe 8 years from now, Julio gets to season 9 of his career and he goes, I don't like the way things are going with this team right now. I want to try my hand at playing for another team. Then there's an opportunity there. Now, the team can obviously override that by exercising their option, but if Julio plays at a high level for the next several years, which seems very likely, if he gets MVP votes, makes All-Star games, etc., excuse me, you are probably looking at a guy who's going to be too good to just let walk. So if he finishes, top 10 in the MVP race two out of 2 or 3 times, it goes up to 240 million, 260 million if he does it 4 times, on and on and on. Basically, the deal goes through the roof if Julio finishes high in the MVP races. And looking at him as a player, a guy who clearly has potential to be a 40-40 guy, a guy who clearly has the potential to bat 300 at some point in his career, hard to imagine him not winning MVP at some point. Hard to imagine him not winning maybe not, well, not necessarily winning, but finishing very high in the MVP race year after year after year. So he's going to be playing at an extremely high level, and it's very likely the team decides they're not going to mess around and they just use their option to keep him in Seattle for most of his career. He's also got a full no trade clause. And look, it's a little surprising the team would throw away their um, club control, but I see a few things going on here that I like. There's a commitment to make sure Julio's happy with this team, a commitment to make sure we don't mess around with our best player, our best asset, and make him feel unhappy with the team in a few years because he's not making very much money for elite play. They're trying to get this out of the way now. And if this is what a commitment to trying to win looks like, then I'm all for it. Now, you don't have to worry about him looking around in 5 years and going, I think this, cheap owner may not be giving me what I'm looking for. This owner whose net worth is like, I looked it up recently, it was 1.1 billion or something like that. That's not good enough. I got to go to LA, I got to go to New York. Now, it's not that simple. Not that simple. But in order to actually pull this all the way through, we're going to have to continue to spend money. And I understand that we don't have the richest owner in the world. I understand we don't have the most lucrative franchise in the world. But we've got some decisions coming up. Mitch Haniger, scary to extend him. But when you look at how good he's been playing, when you look at how good he's been when healthy over the last several years, I think you got to do it. Ty France, he's going to be up for an extension soon if he can figure out whatever the heck it is that's happened to him over the last month plus. You got to do it. You got to bring in other people maybe, because right now guys like Kyle Lewis and Jared Kelnick, we're hard pressed to say if they have a future in the MLB. You might have to go out and get people. You got to do it. Or else this will be a circumstance where we end up selling Julio to the Yankees or Dodgers in a few years, and we just get back prospects and we start over again. We see teams do this sometimes. They get a superstar player who is awesome. They can't build around him, and eventually they realize, you know what? Let's just sell him. Let's just get out from under this contract. Whatever. Let's rebuild. It doesn't matter how good he is. We're not winning with him because baseball, more than any other sport, is a game where one player can do whatever he wants to do. But if you're not supporting him, it's not going to matter at all for your win-loss record. So this commitment needs to carry over, but I like the commitment that they've shown here. This is a clear sign to me that this team is trying to shake the stigma of recent years. They're not going to take a chance of Julio just walking in a few years to a big market team. They're going to lock this in, but we are going to end up in the exact same position if we don't bring in other players. And I know that there are some other partial owners of the Mariners who do have a lot of money, like Nintendo, and I think Ken Griffey Jr. is part of the ownership now. If they got to get involved so you can do these things, then so be it. But this has the opportunity to be the first step. And you can see this foundation of a really good team in the future building up with a pitching staff that should absolutely be able to knock teams down for at least a few more years. And now we have some bats in place, but be ready to spend more money. That's really all I can say right now. All right, that's what I'm going to say about this one. I'm excited. I'm happy. This is awesome. But it's not going to matter much if we don't continue to go. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be comfortable. But when the time comes to give money to guys like Ty France, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, you got to do it. All right. Go Mariners. See you guys later today.